Hello, all my dear friends. This is my first podcast that I'm doing on video too. So, if you're listening to my podcast and you actually want to see me as I'm talking, you can always end up in the show notes by going to drdebbutler.com/ 259, and you can see the video instead of listening to it. Here's what I want to talk to you about today. I just got through doing a group call. As you all know, I do a group call 3 times a year. And the first one is in session right now. And the next one will be opening up probably in about another couple months for those of you who are interested and want to do a group as opposed to individual coaching. There's a lot to be said about group coaching, a lot of aha moments are coming. But one of the things that I'm really learning as I'm working with everybody, especially in this group coaching, is what really creates weight gain. And this is what I want to tell you, not so much the food. I know you probably have heard this before, but this is what I want you to really think about this is that I talk a lot about how thoughts create feelings, and feelings are actually urges. And urges is when you have an urge to eat, you have a pretty good chance of giving in to eating whatever that urge is, depending on how strong it is. And you always end up with a result of proving that you can't control yourself around food and those urges are just too much and you just had to do it. So, one of the things that I have really honed in on that I want to talk to you about today is that there are two specific feelings that will create weight gain for you more than anything that you can eat or any other feeling that you can feel. So, are you ready for the drum roll? Here it is. Da 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 da. The drum roll is that the two feelings are restriction and deprivation. Now, I talk to a lot of you people out there, my clients, my group members, my clients in my groups. And I do a no flour, no sugar portion of my program. And the first thing that comes up when I start talking about it is that people start thinking about what they can't eat. And as soon as they think they can't have something, that thought will create a feeling of deprivation. And when you feel deprived, do you think that you're going to eat it or not eat it? Flour and sugar, if that's what it is. When you think the thought that I can't eat it or I can't have it or I'll never be able to eat it again, those kind of thoughts will create that vibration in your body of deprivation. And probably what you will end up doing from that feeling is overeating or eating something that you're planning on not eating. And then you will have the result of showing yourself how you say you can't have it, but you do have it. And then you show yourself that you can't control yourself. And then you give into urges and you keep repeating the cycle. So here's the thing. No matter what it is that you're doing, if it's no flour, no sugar, if it's a total food plan, or whatever it is that you're going to have for a meal, the last thing you ever want to think or believe is that you can't have it. Or even here's another thought that will create that feeling is it's bad for me. Now, you would think that when you tell yourself, that's really bad for you, you shouldn't eat it, you would think you wouldn't eat it. But you know that there's a good chance you're going to based on what you've seen about yourself. And this is where that feeling of deprivation comes in, is when you tell yourself this is bad and I shouldn't eat this, it makes you feel deprived in your body. And when you feel deprived in your body, usually what you end up doing is eating it just to prove that you have to eat it, just to prove it, even though you're telling yourself it's bad. You're eating it and then telling yourself that you can't control yourself and you're bad. That's what happens from that type of thought and feeling. So the feeling of deprivation is really something that you want to avoid. And I know what you guys think. It's like when I promote no flour, no sugar for a while, and deprivation comes up, we do a lot in group coaching and in client coaching, individual coaching. We do a lot around what else that you can think, because it doesn't really matter what you're eating. It only matters what you're thinking and what that feeling is that you're creating. For instance, let's say like restriction is a feeling that comes from, I can only have so much. I can only have this much. That as soon as you think that you can only have this much, and you feel restricted in your body, usually what will happen is you will eat more than you said. And it's an interesting thing about human nature of how our brains work like that with those feelings. And yet, most people come to me because they say, I don't want to go on a diet anymore. And I promote a lot about no dieting. Let's stop the whole diet, get off of it. But the thing is that a diet itself isn't really a problem unless you think it's a problem. And I know this is kind of messing with you a little bit, but I just want you to show you that regardless of what way you choose to eat, which is, like say you're on a keto diet, or let's just say that you're not eating flour and sugar, or let's just say that you're eating mostly nutritious foods, like on the program that I really created is all about eating fuel and nutritious foods and eating between the twos and planning joy eats. But let's say that somehow your thought is that I can't have that, even with that type of eating. If you think I can't have it, no matter what it is, no matter what the program is, keto, my program, an experiment with no flour, no sugar, the whole 30, whatever all the names of all of these things are, that they actually are not as much the problem as what you think about it. And so, what I want to introduce to you today is how do you want to think about what you're eating whenever you eat? If you know that if you create the feeling of restriction or deprivation, all it will do is make you eat, overeat, do something unplanned, just do something against what you think you want to do. So, how are you going to stop doing that once you become aware of it? The biggest thought that causes the most amount of weight gain is I can't have that. Or this is bad for me. And I gave an example in one of my podcasts where I talked about I was sitting with a bunch of really smart, educated women, really successful women, and we were sitting around in a restaurant at a table, and the server brought out a bread basket, and that every single woman at that table kept passing the bread basket because they either thought, I can't have that, which made them feel deprived. It's bad for me, which made them feel deprived. I can't control myself, which made them feel restricted. And they kept passing the bread basket until it came to me. And I was the one that volunteered and said, I just keep it next to me, no problem. Because I didn't have those thoughts. I knew I could eat it if I wanted, but why? I mean, if I really wanted it, but why would I really want it? It's like my thinking is I'm getting ready to eat a beautiful meal. Why would I want bread? But boy, if my brain comes into I can't have it, or here's a really good thought for you to think about. Oh my gosh, it looks so delicious. That thought also creates this feeling too of an urge that makes you want to eat it just by thinking that it looks delicious, especially it looks delicious and I shouldn't eat it. Those two together probably are the two most poisonous thoughts that you could ever have. So the reason it's so easy for me is because I know not to think that. And I've learned to teach myself and to believe without a doubt that I can eat whatever I want. But why? When it comes to bread before dinner, it's like, why? If I know I can have it, if I know I can have it whenever, why do I want it if I'm getting ready for a meal? I mean, that's just me thinking without thinking I can't have it. Your brain's a lot clearer when you're not feeling restricted and you're not feeling deprived. It's amazing how different you feel when you believe that you can eat whatever you want, that you can eat the bread if you want and just don't want it, right? And I just didn't want it for all the reasons I just told you, even though I knew I could have it. So, restriction and deprivation is something I learned how to change into feelings of um, empowerment, control. Like, I know that I get to decide what I eat. I know that food doesn't decide what goes into my mouth. I know that bread is just bread. I even know that potato chips are just potato chips. And you know what? I didn't know that for a while. I really believed potato chips were bad for you. I really believed I couldn't eat them and I would eat bags of them. So it's like, I know the thought doesn't work and I know the feeling doesn't work. And I know that when people come in and they start talking to me, and that all they say to me is, I just don't want to feel restricted and deprived. They think that what I tell them to do and what I tell them to eat is what's going to cause them to feel restricted or deprived. But it really isn't. The only thing that's going to cause them to feel restricted or deprived, which is what I do in all of my groups and all of my individual clients, is to work on the mind about what you think when you sit down to eat. So, if this is true, and it is. And if you happen to be watching this video and you're looking at me, I'm kind of pointing my finger at you and saying, watch what you're thinking. Watch what you're thinking. Right. And so if we call those erroneous thoughts or thought errors, they sound kind of real and true. It's like, like it's like potato chips. For me, it's like before I just shouldn't eat them. They were bad for me. I couldn't control myself. I can only have a few. As soon as I think I can only eat a few and I know I can't control myself, it doesn't work, right? Especially when I think they're so bad for me. You would think the thought that it's so bad for me would stop you from eating it, but because it creates that negative emotion of deprivation, it makes that primal brain want it more. Right? And so what you think is bad for you goes into your body anyway. And then you prove that it's bad for you and you can't control yourself. And therefore, because really a little bit of any of that food, is it really bad for you? Is it really bad if you just enjoy every bite and stop the minute you're done? Or is it bad for you when you think you shouldn't eat it? Is it bad for you when you think I can only have this? Is it bad for you when you think I shouldn't eat it? I can't have it. That's what's bad for you, is your thinking, not the food itself. So you can put a bag of potato chips in front of me. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're good. I think they're potato chips and I think they taste good. And I can enjoy it bite by bite and stop the minute I'm done. They don't become bad. They don't become good. They become potato chips. That's what I want to offer you this week is how do you want to think about the food that you're eating? If you notice deprivation and restriction a lot coming up in you, notice what you're thinking, regardless of what kind of plan you're on, because you're going to be on some kind of plan, eating something. And it's just what you're thinking about it. And here's another thing that's so interesting. The thought is sometimes is I'm just going to let myself go. I'm not going to pay attention. Like I'm doing myself the biggest favor in the whole world. And the only thing that thought does is you feel disconnected from your body, disconnected from your feelings, disconnected from the food. It's another erroneous thought. But for this week, I want you to catch the two thought errors that cause the most amount of problems. And the feelings that are equated with that are restriction, I can only eat so much, or deprivation, I can't have it, I shouldn't have it, it's bad for me. Those thoughts do not give you what you want. You have to know. I know you're all thinking, okay, well, tell me what to think. Tell me what to think. First of all, what I want you to do is to see what you are thinking. And I want you to see if you can see that you're creating those feelings, not by what you're not eating, but by what you're thinking about what you're eating or not eating. So that's really your job this week is, can you see those feelings? And once you see those feelings, then I want you to see if you can come to a place where you believe I could have it if I want. And I think that you can go, we call it laddering. So sometimes you can't just go, I can eat whatever I want, which is where I live and where I would love for you to live. But where you might go from, I can't eat it, to, it's possible I can believe that I don't want it because I just don't want it. Maybe it's possible that I can believe I don't want it. As long as I think I can't have it, I will eat it. It's a really good laddering thought that creates a totally different feeling because it's not deprivation, it's not restriction. So I really want you to think about that this week. And if you want to see me on video, go to drdebbutler.com/259 and you can actually see this video. And you can also get the show notes on everything I'm talking about how you create restriction and deprivation, not by what you eat, by what you think. And hey, listen, if you really need a coach, you're listening to one. All you have to do, if you'd like to find out if the program that I offer would be good for you, you can go to drdebbutler.com/work with me. You can set up a mini session and we can talk and we can find out if I would be the right coach for you. So until next week, you know what I always say in person or on the podcast is no matter where else you go, no matter what else you do, please, please, please be very kind to yourself. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.